Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's good to see you. This is a reading for Twin Flame Divine Masculines, or it could be for you if you don't resonate with that label, just if you're wanting to work with or rebalance masculine energies within yourself. Then this reading may be helpful for you. So we're going to get started with the overall context of the reading. So we have here the Void and the Fog card, which are both talking about sort of not seeing perhaps the next step or what's necessary, or like just being in this place of confusion is kind of how this is feeling. But this is a really important and significant energy to be in. It's almost like being like in a conscious pause or waiting, perhaps, in order to see what the next step is. There's something really important about this phase, because what you have next here is the breath, the alchemical wedding, and the darkening. So this darkening card is tied to the void, which is very much talking about like something is happening, even though perhaps it's not quite clear what it is that is happening. But then you have here the breath and the alchemical wedding, which are such lovely energies, because I feel like you are actually stumbling upon this energy. Well, perhaps like it's kind of coming in with this energy of like stumbling in the darkness, right? Like just like not seeing where the light switch is, perhaps, and then stumbling upon something that's actually quite life-giving, or brings a lot of clarity, or brings a lot of lightness, like just like taking a deep breath of air, right? That kind of thing. It's kind of like this is the relief from whatever this foggy void energy is, what that's feeling like. I actually feel like for you, Divine Masculine, because you have these two cards at the bottom of the deck for the animals, which are both of these cards are very feminine energies to me. So the deer and the beaver. So it could be that you're focusing a lot on like your emotional well-being, like how you feel, taking care of yourself, that kind of thing. Maintaining a very positive sort of emotional, but also practical, physical kind of environment, like maintaining that space, both emotionally and physically. So it feels like you are very much stable and strong in terms of your feminine energies, meaning like you're taking care of yourself, you're nurturing yourself, you're doing things that are good for your emotional well-being and health is kind of how that's feeling. And with the hummingbird, right? But this is feeling like there's something arriving. It feels very much like a fleeting kind of like, if you blink, you'll miss it kind of energy, right? That's what these cards are talking about. That there's something like, I don't know how to describe it, like shimmery, right? It's like shimmery, or what's the word that I'm looking for? It's like transient. It's not quite that. It's like, because it's so temporary, it makes it more special. There's a word for that, but I'm blanking on what that is. So I feel like that's what the focus is, right? There's some sort of, I feel like it's an idea or something like that, because there's a lot of air elements in your reading today. So it feels kind of like an idea, or like some sort of new inspiration that feels like a lightness of being, right? Like it lifts some sort of heaviness off of your chest is kind of how it's feeling. And I feel like this is wanting to be explored a little bit more. It kind of feels like it's in relation to something to do with your work is kind of how this is feeling, which is interesting. It's because the whole theme of your reading today feels like finding fulfillment in your work is what that's feeling like, and especially with these ones. So we have the 10 of Cups, which is really lovely. The Hierophant, which talks about being a teacher of some sort, right? Like spiritual knowledge or something like that. The 8 of Cups and the Ace of Cups, because I do feel that there's something here with the 8 of Cups that you're needing to leave behind. And I feel like in order to pursue whatever this hummingbird energy is, and it kind of feels like because that's where your 10 of cups is what that's feeling. This is where your 10 of cups is, your emotional fulfillment. But it's kind of like having to actually answer that call or move towards what that is. So that's just the overall context of the reading. If we get into the actual reading part, the current energy, we're starting off here with the mystical sister and the raven's head. So again, all of this air energy, which I feel like is talking about like you've had an idea or something like that, right? Like some sort of inspiration, some sort of like new thought or direction that you're wanting to go towards. With the raven's head, this talks about a call, right? It's like you are ready for this. You're being called towards whatever this new direction is. The mystical sister talks about a really interesting, it's feeling kind of different than it normally comes in with. So the key word that stuck out to me from the guidebook for this one today was outreach. So perhaps your idea has to do with outreach, or like of some sort, whatever that means, or just like whatever this idea is, it's bringing you into, I want to say, new relationships or connections of some sort, right? It's like this call is drawing you towards these types of relationships, which are very spiritual relationships, which have to do with sort of like the basis of these relationships are unconditional love, respect, and honesty, which I love about this card. So I feel like you are being called. Perhaps you're not aware of this aspect yet, though, because it's kind of like you're, it just feels like, again, it's so fleeting. The idea of it is so, I wish I could think of that word, that it's like stuck in my, that's what it is. It's so temporary. Like it flies so fast, right? Like a hummingbird. It's almost like you have to like be really still in order to catch sight of what this is. So you may not be fully aware of it, right? With the void and the fog, you may not be aware of it, but because it's so, it has this energy about it, right? It's I don't know how else, I just got goosebumps on my arm. I don't know how else to describe it besides like shimmery. Like you can, it's like a flash of movement that absolutely draws your attention, but perhaps you're not seeing very clearly what that thing is yet, is what that's feeling like. And I feel like you are about to, is kind of how it's coming through with the spider and the eagle, which I love so much. Okay, so this spider is, it's an earth element, but for some reason I always, at first glance, I always think this is an air sign element for whatever reason. But anyway, so this card talks about creating prosperity through your life's work, which is really interesting because I feel like that's the theme of your reading today, right? Creating prosperity through your life's work. And I feel like this with the spider is kind of like this energy of waiting, right? It's because it's kind of like with this energy, because this is moving almost too fast for you to catch or to see. So it's kind of like having to remain steady so that this energy will be made clear, right? And it's kind of like, so in order to catch whatever this idea is that's elusive, maybe. It doesn't quite feel elusive, but that's the closest word that I can find for it. But anyways, we have the eagle coming out next, which is talking about, actually, so I have had this animal deck for such a long time. And I haven't been using the guidebook for this one for a while now, because I don't know why, but I've recently dived back into the guidebook and it's revealing a whole bunch of like new messages and things like that. Okay, so anyways, the eagle card is talking about the mastery between air and fire, which to me is talking about like mastering the whole dynamic of having an idea and then going towards it, right? It's like, I feel like this here with the spider, it's like waiting for the right tug, I want to say, right? Like it's like something has landed in your web, but perhaps it's not time, or like perhaps you can't see it, or you're not quite aware of it yet. It hasn't fully been brought into your conscious awareness, perhaps. But eventually, once the light, because this is also bringing the sun, right? Once the light is turned on, you can see what that thing is, and being able to take action towards it is kind of how this is feeling, which is really interesting. And then the next cards you have out here are the sublimation and the Neptune card, which are really interesting. Both of these are very similar energies. So if you think about Neptune, as it comes in with all of this idea of like spiritual experiences, right? And especially because with the sublimation, that talks about moving from a solid state, right? This earthy groundedness state into gas, which is air, right? So it's talking about elevation, but both of these energies, so these are both very spiritual, meditation, kind of like higher vibrational energies, right? But there's a caution that comes in with both of these cards that you can get lost in this space, right? You can become too out there or ungrounded, I want to say, in your spirituality. So this is when it becomes like too woo-woo, for lack of a better word, too spiritual, if that's not the proper way of phrasing it, but I feel like it's enough to get the message across. And so the reminder that comes in with both of these cards is to do something that is very grounding, or to channel that energy into helping others, again with the outreach, right? Because it kind of feels like there's a risk perhaps of like following this idea too much, or like with the spider, right? Like perhaps like waiting too much, or doing too much meditation, or too much perhaps self-focus or self-development. I want to say self-development. Like going too far on that end will cause sort of an ungrounding. And so the remedy to that is to actually like serve others, which is interesting, right? To outreach, like to be sort of this mystical sister for others, which is being emphasized here with the B card, because this one talks about community and collaboration, right? So perhaps going towards some energy that is more where your particular skills, I want to say, will be useful, right? And will contribute to the overall health of a community, for example, which is really interesting, because then you also have here the sun, which I love so much, because this is the fire, right? This is the ability to take action. It's a very masculine focused energy, so being able to like go towards the things that you're wanting to create and all of that, especially with the bee. And the bee specifically in this deck talks to me about like finding a lot of joy in your work, because I feel like that's the issue, right? You may be too grounded in your physical. That could be one thing, one possibility for you. You may be too grounded in your physical environment, or just like with the spider here, the earth energy, just not finding a way out, or not being able to move or do or something like that. And so this would be sort of the opposite, right? Connecting more with your spiritual side, or the because again, also with these feminine cards, right? The deer and the beaver, these are also very earthy cards, earthy energies, which is talking about like your very practical environment. So it could be that there's a lot of focus on your practical, physical life, but it's like there's something here that is not that, right? Very different from this energy that is drawing you, that is calling you towards it. And it's like having to actually perhaps make a change in order to go towards this direction, which is really interesting, because the next couple animal cards coming out are the black egg and the tarantula, which I feel like, so first of all, this black egg, which I love, is talking about the throat chakra of your truth, which is really interesting. Your truth. And with all of this, like this breath and the hummingbird as well, because that's also coming in with this energy of like, especially with this throat chakra, the red, right? I feel like there's something here about needing to express your truth in some way. Because it kind of feels like there's an energy of perhaps like waiting is kind of how it's coming through. I don't know, waiting for the right opportunity or waiting for I'm not sure. So the intuition that I was getting for this reading was kind of this energy of like wanting to do something, right? Perhaps something that you've not done before or you're feeling inexperienced about or something like that, right? It's not something that you're used to, but it's kind of like there's a reluctance to start it or to do that because it's kind of feeling like you would rather practice or get better at it on your own in the darkness without anyone noticing, right? It's kind of like, trying to think of an example. I don't know. It just feels like training or practicing independently, but I feel like you've gotten to the point where you can actually take action now is kind of how that's feeling. Especially with these cards, it was coming through with the energy of self-development, right? Developing to the point that it's kind of like you're feeling ungrounded now. There's an imbalance between this energy, which is like constant self-development or constant whatever it is, like practicing, training, building yourself up, into the actual like putting that practice to use or like expressing it in some way, right? Like bringing it out into the open, making it more physical, making it known is kind of how this is feeling. I'm not getting an example of what that is though. So I feel like you just have to apply that to your life, how it resonates. But with the tarantula coming out, which I love so much because this is a fire element card, right? So it's talking about the sun. It's linking to this energy. Look at those cards together. That hand is looking like that spider now. But in contrast to this, right, which is the spider sort of in the darkness or in the void space. But this is a very much like a pausing or a waiting, or even just like this is the practicing, right? You're practicing how to spin the web or whatever it is, and then moving into the tarantula. And what's so interesting about this tarantula card, I always describe as being sort of like the spider who has lost the web. But in this case, it's kind of feeling like you're having to step out of the web, right? Like to like actually leave this comfort zone, right? Leave the comfort area, which is really interesting in order to create what it is that you're doing. It does take sort of this leap of faith is kind of how that's feeling. I'm just like looking at these cards together because I feel like this is the thing that you're wanting to create, the 10 of Cups, the emotional fulfillment. It's actually shining light on the things that you've been preparing, right? It's bringing it out into the light is what that's feeling like. Because this one always looks to me kind of like if you think of like a concert or something like that, like some sort of display of lights, right? Like a light show of some sort. But this is still in the darkness. So perhaps this void energy is something that you're creating, right? You're purposely trying to hide, or not purposely trying to hide, but like shrouding whatever it is that you're creating, right? Something that is a very physical expression of a spiritual energy, and there's a kind of like a waiting or a delaying that's coming out here when you're being called to display or show up or present or whatever it is, whatever this thing is that you've been preparing is kind of how that's feeling. Okay, I pulled so many tarot cards. I'm going to go through them as much as I can before I feel like the reading gets too long. But we're starting off here with the Nine of Pentacles and the Four of Wands, which if you just look at these two cards, the diamonds, right? So both of these were talking about home and celebration, right? It kind of feels like home and celebration, which is really interesting. I feel like this is what you're being called to go towards, especially because this is kind of looking like the practice, right? Like the spider webs. This is like the blueprint, perhaps. And then the Nine of Pentacles is like the actual physical manifestation of that. It could also be talking about bringing together sort of the practical prosperity, kind of like creating prosperity from your spiritual practice or something like that, or your life work or whatever. It doesn't have to be a spiritual practice, though I do feel that it's related to that in some way. And then you have here the Ace of Wands and the Nine of Cups, which is really interesting because this is talking about like that fresh inspiration, that new idea that you're wanting to go towards. With the Nine of Cups, it was coming through with bliss, actually, which is really interesting. But it feels very independent, meaning I feel like you're kind of sort of content to stay in this energy, right? The planning, the doing things on your own or in private, I want to say, like just keeping this energy to yourself in some way, right? With the spider energy, because this is a very lovely energy. Perhaps it's just brainstorming or creating blueprints or plans or whatever it is. But then you have here, which is really interesting, the Tower card. The Tower card to follow all of that sort of blissful, happy, celebration type energy. Because actually how this Four of Wands was coming through, actually it came out in reverse, meaning like I feel like I accidentally put this card back in reverse, which is really interesting. So I flipped it over, but I feel like what this is saying is that there's almost like a holding back of some sort of completion is kind of how this is feeling with because this card in this deck specifically talks about completion of a cycle and sort of with the alchemical wedding, a celebration, right? There's some sort of celebration that I feel like you're holding back on, or completion of some sort, or some sort of happy sort of union coming together kind of energy that you're holding back on because to actually go towards that would feel like this, right? Because this tarantula talks about like feeling unsteady or feeling feeling unsafe perhaps, or just like not secure. There's a lack of security that comes through with the tarantula at times. And so that could be causing this Tower moment. So you could be actually feeling this on some level. Like there could be something in your life that's like really just like taking a toll on you because it's trying to get you to act, right? With the Hierophant, sort of these two cards. So this one is coming through with that sort of the Raven's head energy. It's a call. Whatever this Tower moment is that you may be experiencing is actually calling you to move towards whatever this is, right? It's trying to get you to bring this creation or whatever it is into the light so that it can be seen and witnessed by those who need to see and witness it. But both of these, so these are the two cards that follow the Tower, which is the Four of Swords and the Daughter of Pentacles. So both of these cards are talking about sort of resting and remaining in the background is kind of how this, now this is coming through with like a light show or a concert. It's kind of like I feel like you on some level are content to stay in the background or to be sort of behind the scenes. That's what was coming through with this Daughter of Pentacles. You've done a lot of hard work on a project or something, right? You've done a lot of hard work is kind of how it's feeling. But with this card, there's a reluctance to step out into the light because of whatever this is. And that may be causing some sort of Tower moment is kind of how it's feeling. Or it could be that this is just like the momentum that is needed in order to get you to go to leave the void space, if that makes sense. Okay, and then next up you have here the Lovers, which I love so much, because I feel like this is talking about like that, like the 10 of Cups, right? So it could be a specific relationship, though it doesn't necessarily have to be. It just feels like making the choice to step out into the light, right? Because the light is very much shining on you. I feel like it's just like whatever's happening now, if it does feel like sort of a difficult energy, it's wanting you to go towards this thing. And it could be very uncomfortable at first, or being in the spotlight, right? That's what this is talking about. Making your project or your creation known to others, perhaps, or to the general public, or actually pursuing the thing that is drawing your attention, and leaving behind whatever this energy is, whatever the 8 of Cups, Tower, void space, fog energy is. And then you have here the Son of Cups and the Father of Pentacles, which I love so much, because this is talking about like all of this like emotional, creative energy, but balancing that with the physical stability aspect. So I feel like what this reading is really wanting you to focus on is that your spiritual practice, I feel like there's, let's find a different word for that. Your wildest dreams, I want to say, because Neptune also brings in the energy of dreams, right? Like something that you've dreamed about, something that you've been dreaming about, some sort of like creative inspiration that you're wanting to create, or something like that. Some sort of dream that has to do with your life's work. You've touched on that energy, and it's like perhaps in sort of the cover of darkness, or in private, let's say, you've been exploring that possibility, perhaps making plans, but there's a call here for you to actually pursue this in the physical, right? To find a way to create physical prosperity from your life's work, or from your dream, right? Something that you are absolutely inspired by. And I feel like that step is going to take a little bit of this energy, having to make a big decision, right? Being sort of at a crossroads, but also willing to step out into the spotlight is kind of how that's feeling. All right, Divine Masculine, I'm going to end the reading there. I hope this resonated with you. If it did, please consider subscribing, liking, or leaving a comment. I'm also having a sale on personal readings. If you're interested, you can find all the information in the description box below. I'm also going to do an extended for this video. You can also find that in the description box below. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.